This is Talk is Sheep, the official podcast of the Wild Sheep Society of BC, brought to you by Sitka Game. Come along as we bring conversations that matter to you into the high alpine. This episode of Talk is Sheep is brought to you by Penticton Honda Center. When the backcountry calls, who's ready? When the job needs real power, who delivers? When hunting season hits and you need tools you can trust, there's only one place you can count on. Penticton Honda Center is your go-to place for all your power sports and power equipment needs. Whether you're working the land, heading deep into the backcountry, or hauling gear during hunting season. With a huge selection from Polaris, Husqvarna, Stihl, and Honda, they've got everything from ATVs and side-by-sides to chainsaws, generators. Early morning, rough terrain, long days. You need equipment that shows up every time. Visit Honda Center at pentictonhonda.com or give them a call at 250-492-3808. Penticton Honda Center, the place to start. Ladies and gentlemen, we're back in the podcast studio, and we're live streaming today from Burns Lake, of all places. And we've got a conservation legend, a guy that's certainly not a stranger to the wild sheep community, whether it be BC, Alberta, Wild Sheep Foundation National, and beyond. Don, your reputation precedes you, and just an honor and privilege to have you on the podcast. So Don Stevenson Knives, great to talk to you today, Don.
Thanks, Kyle. It's great to be here.
Awesome. So we got lots to catch up on. First thing we're going to talk about is the U.S. election. Oh, wait. No, just kidding.
There we go. There's our politics thing done.
Yeah, we off air before we got started, we're like, well, what are we going to talk about today? And we'll maybe leave the politics out of things, and it's probably a good idea. It's a quick way to lose some listeners and gain a lot real quick too. So, but we'll leave that alone for now. Maybe Don, I'd like to start off with maybe about the early days for you, and you've had this strong conservation ethic for a long time now, and certainly you've been a supporter of Wild Sheep Foundation Alberta for over a quarter century, and you came from Alberta. Maybe just talk about your upbringing and what got you interested in the hunting, outdoors, conservation, kind of the young Don Stevenson.
Well, that was quite an adventure. Where we grew up, there was lots of hunting just out the door. My dad did a lot of hunting when I was young. It was always a big deal in the fall that they'd go on the guys' trip to the mountains and try to find an elk. And as I grew up, I started to hunt just, I guess, because it was always around me. It seemed like the thing to do. And at 14, I bought my first rifle and started to hunt. Had to have adult with me, so I'd beg, borrow, and steal people's dads or moms or whoever I could to go with me. And, from a very early age, was happy to help bring in some meat, kind of work that part of it. And then as I grew, I kind of did the stages of hunting. When you first want to hunt, you want to just kill something. And then after that's succeeded, then you want to kill everything. And then you want to kill the big ones. I realized we got to help keep them there. And that's kind of where kind of how it went. I mean, that's over quite a number of years. As far as with the Sheep Foundation, goes back to when Alberta was setting it up, and I was asked by a really good friend of mine if I could make a banquet knife for them for their first dinner. And I said, you bet. And from there now, this year will be 27 years. So
that's amazing. On that note, and I want to go back to your early days, Don, but on the note of Wild Sheep Foundation Alberta and that first banquet, you've attended almost all those, if not all of them, haven't you?
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
My knives have been at every one. I physically missed one banquet because I had knee surgery and I wasn't allowed to travel yet. But I sent my booth and my daughter to kind of man it for me, and so
amazing.
We've had a presence there as long as we've been around, and proud of that part.
So talk about that first banquet. Where was it? When was it? How many people were there? What did it look like?
There was probably 150 or 200 people at the Olds College in a room there. It was really well attended. you know, it's been amazing to watch the growth there. Well, you were there last year to see the return home to Red Deer. I'm not even sure how many people were there last year. So it was a pile.
I know they were saying like 1,000 was. I'm pretty sure they said 1,000. It was it was a lot of
Yeah.
people. Yeah.
Yeah, no, pretty incredible. But the first banquet, there was some good donations come in. I think my first knife, think the first banquet knife, if I remember rightly, sold for like $250, and I was ecstatic because it brought kind of what I figured it was worth, and and
Yeah.
thought it was pretty neat. And from there, it's just we went through that, and then we moved to Red Deer to the lodge after a few years we were there, and then over to the room we are now, and then we did a couple of years when we were out of that facility. We did one in Edmonton and one in Calgary, both well attended. It's an interesting thing. I think their move back to Red Deer's helped them out, kind of rejuvenated everybody and got everybody fired up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What were the names back then, Don? Do you recall the names in those early days? The guys that were involved. Can you think of anyone that was?
Yeah, well, Darcy Owen, Kelly Sandy, Gary Bracken. The old sheep hunters.
Right.
That's who was there to start with. Is all the hardcore sheep hunter guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of outfitters, a lot of ranchers.
Right.
And as time goes on, we see that changing a little bit. You know what I mean? As compared to now, I mean, there's still those guys, but there's a lot of just people and hunters and conservation-minded people that live in cities, towns, whatever. People that enjoy the backcountry.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Seen a lot of people changes on the committees over the years.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. Hey, a lot of people doing a lot of heavy lifting behind the scenes and working hard to make it happen for sure. Don, so where did you grow up? What part of Alberta? I think you're in the mountains there, but where did you grow up? And talk a little bit about and what kind of hunting you were doing. You talked about being at 14, going out and doing your thing. What kind of stuff were you doing there?
I grew up in Water Valley, Alberta, which is about an hour northwest of Calgary in the foothills, kind of just on the edge of what I call the green area. A lot of whitetail, a little bit of mule deer. Elk came along. They weren't open when we first started. Moose was available, and game, grouse, but that was basically it. A lot of whitetail hunting for me when I first started. I mean, they were plentiful, and tags were easy to get, and just there. And then as I got to be a little bit older and started venturing west into the mountains, I realized that that's where I was really at home. So
Very
from there,
cool.
a few years later, I decided I wanted to be an outfitter. So I had to dig around. At that time, we used to have to pass a test from the Alberta government to become a Class A guide. And I passed that test in the early 80s. And then, I've had a guide's license ever since.
Okay. So did you ever do any guiding or anything like that, or did you have an any outfitting stuff?
Didn't have outfitting stuff of my own, but I guided whitetail and elk hunts in Alberta for probably 20 years almost.
Okay.
15 years for sure. That helped out here and there. I've helped out on other guys' whitetail hunts and stuff, and been, gone down into southern Alberta to some of those zones and helped with other guys' tags and some antelope tags of my own, and that kind of thing. Just kind of, but like I said, I keep getting always been drawn back to the mountains. My first summer out of high school, I worked in Kananaskis, building hiking trails. And, found a real affinity for the high places. So.
Right. So, what's your bucket list hunt then? Like, what's the one go-to hunt that if like, okay, this is the only one you're allowed to do next year, what would you pick?
Stone sheep.
Is it? Yeah.
But I'd have to get there. You know what I mean? For me right now, like I said, after two knee replacements and stuff, it's got to be the logistics have got to work out. So.
Right. Yeah. You need it to come to the lake.
Well, or put us in an area where we can maybe use horses or.
Yeah.
Because that's what we did. Like when I elk hunted in Alberta, it was all horseback. So.
Right.
Yeah. kind of a dyed-in-the-wool horse hunter, I guess.
Yeah.
Learned early that they can carry a lot more stuff than I can. So
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, what year did you leave Alberta then and move to Burns Lake?
I think it was like 2004, 2005,
Okay.
right there somewhere. I think it was 2004, but it was right just after a couple of years after Manitow. We had to make a readjustment, reorganize ourselves. So Burns Lake was kind of at the end of the road and seemed like a good spot. So
Awesome. So you packed up shop, and obviously you continued to support Wild Sheep Foundation Alberta,
yeah.
and then you started to spread your wings and got involved with the society. When did you come on board with the Wild Sheep Society BC?
Ooh, you probably know that better than I do.
I'm just trying to think of the date. I can't remember exactly. I was wondering if you were did you like Rob Kopecky was president back in the day and stuff? Were you involved
No,
with them at all?
it was just after Rob went to Alberta.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Right.
just right about then. Banquet was still in Kamloops.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, Parker caught me at the Alberta dinner one night and said, "Well, how come you're not supporting BC?" I said, "Because I can't find anybody to talk to." He said, "Well, I know a guy." So, so we went from there, and then when Yukon started, they phoned me and asked me to jump on board too. So I did that as well. And like I said, as you know, we got knives going quite a few places now, and Midwest because they help us out with our stuff up here. So
Yeah.
for national, it's a good thing there too as well. And
Yeah. Yeah, a ton of heavy lifting all across the board. So let's talk about the knife stuff. How did that start? When did you get involved in that? And did it start as a hobby or a business? How did that evolve, Don?
probably about 31 years ago, I contracted a guy in Alberta to make me a knife. And when I got it, it wasn't at all what it was supposed to be, and it was twice as much money as what we discussed. And I thought, well, if that idiot can make knives, I should be able to. And hunted down some guys to teach me, and took a couple basic courses to start with, and then was lucky enough that I was able to connect the dots with a few other guys. Like Ed Storch was one of them that I had connected with fairly early. At that time, he'd been making knives for 25 years. You know what I mean? So he's 86 or 87 years old and still going strong making knives. But I studied with him and then got to spend quite a bit of time with a fellow by the name of Brian Little, who's now passed away, but he was down in Longview, Alberta. And at the time, he was probably one of the most notable Canadian knife makers. And him and I got along well. And he hunted and I hunted, so we had lots to talk about. Spent a lot of good time in the shop together. Yeah, the early days of knife making, I was guiding whitetail hunts, and I would guess probably my first 200 knives are all live in Alabama.
Okay.
Because I started it off just as a hobby. I made one for myself and I made one for I had a course, and then 2 weekends later the guy was free, so I told him to come back and we'd have another one. A little mobile class he'd bring to your shop, and had a group of friends get together and did it. And then by the time that the word got out a week later, I had a bunch of other guys that were ready to do it. So we did another one about 2 or 3 weeks later. And then I I don't know, I was bitten by a bug. You know what I mean? And it's been kind of a spiral ever since. It's the one thing I don't get tired of doing, it seems like. You know what I mean? I can go out to the shop and work, and it's always kind of once I get in the shop, it's a breath of, that's my happy place, kind of. When I'm not in the shop, it can be a little hectic trying to get there, but you know what I mean? Once you're there, you kind of settle in and just do your thing. And
It seems like you've always got, a ton of work, and it seems like there's a lot of demand, and it's like, obviously you're incredibly busy. You run your ranch and farm. You've got your knife making business, all the other stuff you're doing. You've got a lot on the go, and it seems like there's a ton of demand for your work.
it's been good. I sure can't complain, that's for sure. I'm very fortunate that people seem to like my stuff. So, you know, I always say that I could have 100 knives here and it wouldn't bother me because I like knives too. So it doesn't seem like I ever get that many built up around here, but No, I've been really fortunate. I've got knives all over. Like, it's amazing some of the places my knives have traveled. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So would you say 90% of the work you do, like the majority of the work you do, it's word of mouth, and people just call you up and say, hey, yeah, I want one of your knives. Like a Stevenson knife it's a thing, right? Like people know that, like it's just kind of, yeah, it's those two words go together very nicely. People recognize that. Is it word of mouth, or is it the shows? Or I know last year in Alberta, you showed up and you had quite a great selection, and within a couple hours there wasn't much left. It got picked over pretty darn quick.
well, Alberta's always been good to me in that respect. And there's guys that I know. I talked to guys a couple of years ago that said they came to the show to buy a knife. That's why they came.
Hmm.
When it used to be inside before they had a trade fair type setup.
Right.
And no, I don't know. I've never really advertised much. I mean, I advertise by donating to Sheep Foundation and stuff, but to me, it's more than advertising. That's part of the mission, right? So,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Giving
but
back
I've
for
been
sure.
very fortunate. People have responded very well. So,
Yeah. Awesome. What did your knife sell for in Alberta last year? I think that a new record.
yeah, yeah, definitely the record for one. It was 11,000 by the time they were done. So,
uh,
it blows my mind every year how much money my knives help put back on the mountains. So.
So, what do you tell people when you tell someone that, yeah, you've brought one knife to a show, and it generated $11,000? Because people don't get that. In fact, they think people are idiots. They're like, oh, well, whoever bought that's an idiot. They like that. They don't understand it. So, what do you tell them when someone like that asks? Because I know people go, what?
Yeah, I always say that that obviously the person believes in the project as much as I do, and that is keep on the mountain and have their hunting heritage for all one time. And these people that are able to spend that kind of cash, they come to spend some money, and I'm just happy that they choose my knives to spend it on.
That's phenomenal. Well, and there was a real incredible award that they honored you with last year at Wild Sheep Foundation Alberta. Talk a little bit about what was involved with that and the recognition you received there.
Yeah, well, they handed me a Skyline membership, and I believe it. Just hang on, I'll look and see exactly what it says. It's the conservation partner and friend. Yeah, and that was set up by the guys for me, I guess. And, we'll see how it goes in the future for them. So,
Uh, well, it's
you
phenomenal.
know me.
Uh,
I said I hate talking about myself. You know that.
I know it's for our listeners. Just Don's getting a little emotional here, so might have to switch the subject up a little bit.
No, we're
Um,
good.
so, Don, talk a little bit about the legacy piece. So, you obviously are deeply invested in our conservation community, and now the next generation. I kind of thought it was just the next generation with your daughter Dallas, and your son's been getting more involved, but Dallas especially.
Yeah,
She's really taken on the donation side of things, and more so to like volunteering and get involved in a lot of our programs, our Women Shaping Conservation program. And I think she was out in Alberta last year with you there, and then but then now it's the grandkids.
yeah, they're excited about it too, and we're trying to teach them you have to put back. You can't just take. That's the bottom line. If we don't support it, nobody will. We can't rely on our governments at this point. Conservation's on the back burner with the other issues they have to deal with, and if we don't ourselves step up and put some in, our hunting heritage will go, and we don't want to see that happen.
So talk.
Dallas hunted from an early age as well. When the grandkids have been hunting, but Dallas started when she was 14 years old in Alberta, just like chased deer the first couple of years and got an elk, a few years after that. And she's got quite a number of deer, and out here in BC, she's taken a moose, and we took her out. She got a buffalo tag a few years ago. She wasn't successful, but we went up there and pounded the mountains in 25 below, and and we took her son, on a buffalo hunt when it's minus 25, just to show him what it's like and what we do. So
So what are those kids? Where are they at with everything? Like Dallas's two kids. Talk a little bit about their involvement and what it looks like to them. I know they've been very involved with the society. They do a ton of. They've been at a bunch of our camps and enter our contests, and they're both half curl members. I think they were the very first two to sign up as well. So just talk about that. But I know they're super busy kids, right? They're going around the world for sports and all kinds of stuff, right? So
no, they're heavy into rugby and stuff, but hunting's lifestyle for them too. They've learned it right from the time they were little, out there thumping the trails with us. And like this fall, I took them with another friend. We went up in the Chetwynd area, and we went on a 3-day deer hunt with the grandkids, just to let them get out and experience and the new area and shoot some deer and have some fun. And then they get home, and then we spend the next 2 days cutting it all up and wrapping it so they put it in the freezer. And my granddaughter phoned me. She goes, "Papa," she said, "there's almost 60 pounds of hamburger." That was the exciting part. Wyatt, he just loves to eat, right? So he looks at everything with 4 legs like, "Oh, there's a sandwich." But no, as far as the other part, we're trying to teach them from this age. They have to put back, and they have to participate, because I think that's where we slide a little bit as a group. Not the sheep guys so much, but as a group of hunters. I think we slide a bit in the fact that we tend not to get organized and get affiliated. And, you know what I mean? We all want to do our own thing, but at some point, like I said before, I don't think we can leave it with the government to handle it. I think we have to start putting our foot. And I mean, we're the guys that are out there. We're the guys seeing it firsthand. We see the results. I mean, they don't see it till 5 years down the road with their legislation, right? But we see it right away what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
Maybe just touch a little bit on, you got involved with Alberta 27 years ago, and I know you do a ton of stuff with the locally there with your gun club and a whole bunch of other stuff. Were you doing that stuff before you got involved in the sheep world, or it was kind of and like we talk about the evolution of the hunter, right? Like you just want to go out and get your first animal, and then you want to go out and kill a bunch of stuff, and then you want to kill the big stuff, and then eventually you're like, oh, we have to look after this, and then it's about starting to give back. So maybe talk about that personal journey with you. Like, did you always have that conservation? Because I didn't have that conservation ethic. Not that I wasn't a conservationist or didn't care. I just never, when I was 14, all I could think about was just getting my first deer. That's all I really gave a shit about,
Yeah.
right? So
I think I was a lot the same when I was 14, 15. It was just a matter of I wanted to get something, and for me, I'm a little like Wyatt. I always liked to eat, so meat was good. And then, as I went along, I got some pretty decent animals. And then when I started guiding, I think it was probably after about my third season of guiding, after we killed 25 whitetails in my home area, I'm thinking to myself, we're putting a dent in these deer. You know what I mean? We're not seeing the size we were 5 years ago. And, the numbers seem a little off. And, I just started realizing that, it's not just a forever take, take, take. And then, I'd been involved with I got involved slightly with the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. A little bit of stuff with them when they were kind of going in Alberta, and then when the sheep guys broke away, like I said, a couple of those guys were pretty good friends of mine that broke away. Kelly, Sandy, and Darcy Olm. And I just kind of followed them over that way because it seemed like that was the group of people I thought were, going the right direction. And then as things have gone on, it's just, I guess what it is I found out that I could do a little bit. As I did a little bit and a little bit more, I started realizing that, what doesn't seem like a big deal to me can make an impact. So that's kind of how I've gone with that part of it. But as far as putting back, like I said, I started noticing it at home with our whitetail size. That's where it kind of started. And then where we guided elk in the mountains, I started seeing like it was a 6 point zone. So we started seeing elk that were genetically 5 point. And you could have left until they were 105 and they'd never grow that 6 point,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. So, you know what I mean? I guess that started opening my eyes. And then with the sheep guys, I could see an avenue a little bit. And in Alberta too, I mean that different groups, Alberta's had quite a lot of people on the board over the years, and every one of them has tried to do the very best, you know what I mean? And it's oftentimes good to get a new perspective and a fresh angle. But you know what I mean? I think a lot of it, everybody wants the same thing. We all want to be able to tell our grandkids and let them go do the same thing we did. Experience the mountains, hang out there, have a hope to see the sheep, least, you know what I mean? And whether you get it done or not, well, everybody's got a different level of commitment, right? So,
Yeah. Yeah. Um, has Dallas gone sheep hunting yet?
not per se, but it's
Okay.
definitely on our list. But my son Tyler, he guided in Yukon for several years, and
Yeah.
he was up guiding Dall sheep, and he's put his time in for sure, and and like you said, he helps out here a lot. Like I said, without him, I wouldn't be able to do what I do.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's always the steady Eddie that's here at the farm taking care of things while I'm gone doing the shows and stuff like that. Except this year he's coming to Penticton, so
Awesome.
I'm dragging him to Penticton this year. So, but and like I said, it's to me, sheep are kind of like the canary in the coal mine. You know what I mean? They're kind of fragile. I mean, we're very fortunate here in BC. We have pretty good populations, pretty healthy herds. But as we've seen down south last couple of years, things can happen pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of why I think that especially the sheep guys seem to have their finger on it ahead of maybe the other guys. You know what I mean? A little bit. Just, I don't know. It just, again, it's the way I've chosen the path I've chosen to follow, and it seems to be working. Like I said, I think we try to do as much good as we can every year, and with that stuff, I mean, it's always interesting to see how it just goes. You know what I mean? But
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you have planned for shows this year then, Don? Where are you all going?
I'll be in Reno, and then Dawson, and then Penticton's next, Alberta, and then the Northern Alberta chapter's a little after that in Edson. That's kind of my route so far. If the Yukon decides to put on a dinner, I might run up and support that too.
Awesome.
They just
And
did. They just did a giveaway the other day. they had a raffle going, and they just allotted the prizes yesterday, I think. So, and
yeah,
I donated.
I was choked. I wanted to get in on that, and they're like, "No,
Me
you
too.
got to be here to buy it." I'm like, "What? Ah, it's not fair." Like, yeah,
No, that's
now
what
I
I said.
know.
Oh, now I got to drive up and get one.
Yeah, well, and we, we're the same here in BC. You got to be in BC, and I get it all the time. People are like,
Yeah.
"What? I want to buy, and I can't." And I'm like, yeah. It's like, sorry, it's
Same thing in Alberta as well. So
yeah, it's.
I always hope they got a couple of tickets for their hunt of a lifetime when I roll in at the bank if they're showing. Hope there's still a couple tickets available, right? So
yeah, no, absolutely, for sure.
But that's the show season for this year, like I said. And like you said, asked about some of the other groups we work with. I work with the local Rod and Guns, and I did Ducks Unlimited here in town. Pretty much anybody that can show me conservation ties or youth ties. We just had one today on BC Hunter. I donated a couple of knives for their youth photo contest.
Okay.
That there are a couple of the prizes that the winners will be getting. So I just got their names last night or this morning, and they get their knives touched up, put their names on them, and send them out.
That's awesome. So, Don, you've been doing this for 27 plus years. You're not getting any younger, and I know you got lots of kicks still, lots of life still in you. But who's going to be the next generation of Stevenson knife makers? What does that look like?
Well, Tyler's very capable. He just doesn't have much time right now, and the grandson is showing a lot of interest. And I won't count out the granddaughter
Is that right? Eh?
at this
Yeah.
point. No, they both worked with me in the shop, and they both do well. So
Very cool.
Jennifer brought one of her friends from school and cadets here, and did a nice course, the two of them together, and they come up with some pretty fantastic looking blades. So
Hmm. Yeah. Awesome. Um, what about Dallas? Talk a little bit about her business because she's started to get really involved, and I know that she's got has stuff in the booth lately and done some beautiful
yeah,
work. So
yeah,
yeah.
she does well. She was doing after when she started doing wire work, like she does wire wrapping, I guess they call it. And she was working with all these little polished stones and rocks and stuff. And I was teasing her one day. I said, "Why don't you come out to the shop and get some real material to work with?" She goes, "Like what?" I said, "Well, come get a couple pieces of sheep horn or something." And so we went through my scrap bucket. Every sheep horn I cut up, I've never thrown any away. So
Huh.
I've got all these little tidbits stacked in pails around the shop. That, like some stuff down to like half-inch by quarter-inch kind of thing, sizes that are still sitting there because I just can't bring myself to throw it away because it's hard to get, right? So, but she got in there and started making a couple of cabs and stuff out of it, and then wire wrapped them, and give a few away, and donated some to you guys. I think were some of the first ones she donated, and now she's donating like I do to just about everybody, and she's finding it's a really, like she said, it's the nicest community she's ever been a part of.
Hmm.
So that speaks volumes, I think. So, but
Well,
again, she likes it because she can see it helping, and it's a way to give back.
right. Well, and she's obviously had a mentor, right? It's when you grow up, um, being, learning that conservation and giving back and supporting organizations is what you do. You don't know any different, right? That comes from somewhere. Like, yeah, okay, you can learn, or maybe get sucked in by somebody you're involved.
Yeah.
But it's. I know your grandkids are not going to be different because that's all they know. They've seen you do it, and they've seen their mom do it, and now they're going to do it
Oh,
too, right?
absolutely. Well, Dallas was helping out at the Alberta banquet when she was 13, 14 years old, right? Running
Right.
around selling tickets and, just doing all the things that you need volunteers to do, right?
Yeah.
So she got a taste of it early, and then, she went off to college and profession and having kids, and like she said, now I was teasing her that night. She said, "Well, now I got some time," and I laughed at her because right now the two grandkids are both in basketball. They're both wrestling, and they're still running into Prince George once in a while for rugby stuff. So, and they do cadets. So basically 5 nights a week,
Yeah.
they're doing something. But Dallas says, when I have a little free time, I'm thinking, okay. But she really enjoys it. Like she said, the women shaping conservation thing is, she's becoming very passionate about it. You know what I mean? Like watching her and seeing how that's developing is really incredible. I think
Well,
anyway.
she got involved with Elevate, which was that backcountry hike that they did this summer, and then obviously
Yeah.
Jennifer attended that, and I think she donated pieces for every single participant, and the women were just like, the feedback from that was just absolutely, nobody expected anything, and all of a sudden they were receiving this beautiful jewelry and stuff, that the work that Dallas had done, and it was really, really, I think that was a really bonding moment for those women on the mountain.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like it. I know they all still stay in touch. They got a group chat that they're in all the time. So, which is awesome in my mind, you know. And, like you were talking about the grandkids, they've been fortunate enough to take part of a lot of the youth programs. And then this year, Jennifer won that essay contest and got sent to Alberta. And I know the guys in Alberta that run it. So we got a spot for Wyatt as well through them. And, it was just a great experience, and showed Jennifer more about the mountain and herself than she knew. You know what I mean? And then the Elevate hike was awesome for her too, like just awesome. I know they're both planning on the ruck in the park this year at Penticton, so the
Is
two
that right?
grandkids. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be a great event. So you've been involved now, and you talked about government not doing its job, and well, let's touch a little bit on the politics here. Not down the rabbit hole, but
Yes.
you know, clearly government's not going to do our job. We kind of, I think we need to realize that it is what it is, and that if we want to do things on the landscape, and I feel like as in our community, the Wild Sheep Society, and I see what Alberta's doing and national as well. We are taking things into our own hands. We're being proactive. We're looking for new projects, new opportunities, and investing. So, kind of, how do you see that sort of moving forward, Don? In kind of the new normal, where government used to look out for us, and now maybe they're not. They don't have that ability to do that.
Well, I see the Sheep Society and Wild Sheep Foundations all over as kind of the leading edge of a lot of the really good things that are happening. I mean, there's some other groups coming on board with different stuff, but I think they're looking at our model, or I say I consider myself a member, I guess. So
it is your model, Don. You're good to say that for sure. Yeah.
But I think moving forward, we have to. I mean, we can't let our foot off the gas.
Mm-hmm.
We got to keep pushing it.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, nobody is. I think the government right now is happy to manage game to zero, because then they don't have to deal with it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's my opinion anyway. I don't know. I know it's kind of a controversial thing, and it's just by their actions, they don't seem to get anything done.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? There's a lot of red tape, a lot of money spent, but nothing actually happens.
Yeah.
Or very little. Closing seasons, putting them on limited entry isn't the answer for everything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's other things that need to go along with it. Until we have stuff stepping up, I know a few biologists, some that have worked for the government, some that haven't. But in speaking with a biologist, it doesn't seem like even the government's even willing to take the suggestion of the biologists at times about things. So, that concerns me. But I know that, like with Sheep Foundation, we've done some really groundbreaking work. Like when we were involved in putting those collars on the stone sheep, that's never been done or thought of, or you know what I mean. And then all the disease stuff you guys are doing in the south is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? The management, and being able to do it long term. That's the, and having the agreements in place and being able to. It's almost like you got like the Wild Sheep Society is the broker of the peace that allows that to happen.
Right. Right.
And that part to me is, that's something we have to focus on more. And if that means the Sheep Society takes a bigger role or continues in their role as a leader on setting these things up, that's great. You know what I mean? Somebody has to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like me with the different boards and stuff I've worked with in Alberta, and the different people we try to work with in any of the chapters and stuff. I always tell people say, well, what do you think of the new board? I said, I think they're doing their best. But you know what I mean? At the end of the day, it's about the grand scheme. It's not about the people. It's about where we're headed that we have to keep focused on. So we don't want to get caught up in personality stuff.
Yeah.
That seems to happen a bit with the government stuff. It seems like we get caught up on a personality or a party line, and it slows us down and creates difficulty that we don't need.
Right. Yeah. Well, and that's the interesting thing that, I think a lot about is our conservation community, right? Our broader conservation community. And you think of all these, it's not about one person, right? It's all the malaise of all these different entities, whether they're people, their organizations, their businesses. They're all kind of doing various degrees of lifting, and some of it's small, some of it's just showing up and just doing a tiny little part, or maybe making a small donation. And then there's the Stevenson of the world that are doing a ton of heavy lifting, right? And but we all it's all kind of working collectively. And if you start taking any of those pieces away, then it all kind of starts. You kind of need all of it, is what I'm trying to say, right? It's not going to happen by itself. It's by there's there's forces there, and if we don't put the intentional effort in, and whether it's a little bit of effort or a ton of effort by a lot of people, we're not going to do what we've done. It's been this group of people, entities, orgs, businesses that have put a lot into it, and a lot of people doing a lot of things.
Absolutely. And there's guys that move mountains. You know what I mean? Like, holy cow. It's amazing some of the support we see. And I think that, again, drives me to work harder at it. Do as much as I can. But you're right. Without everyone working together, we have nothing. It's, one person can't win the fight. We have to come as a united force. And that's what I'd like to see eventually, where, all hunters could band behind a banner and demand change or demand things. It seems really hard for that to happen right now because everybody's segmented. The bow hunters want this, and this guy wants that. You can't attack any of the big problems like that. You have to be willing to put personal stuff aside a little bit and try to work for the better. Try to make things move forward, not backward.
Yeah, well said. Well, and I think government and like other entities too, like not just government, they rely on that division, right? They're like, oh, well, they can't get their shit together because they're fighting over a traditional bow versus a long bow or whatever the case may be. People are mired in these tiny little, and we can't be like that. We have to get on the same page because there's a lot at stake here. If we don't kind of get it right, there's obviously our hunter heritage, the ability to go out and do what we love. But then there's the conservation side too, right? Because the thing is if we're not doing it, if we're not looking after those sheep on the mountain or those moose in the swamp, who's going to do it? Because we're seeing governments doing less and less of it because they don't have the resources or the ability to do it. There's great bios that are trying really hard, but they have no money to work with, and it's just getting worse and worse and worse on that front. So the thing is the question that I have for people is like, well, if we're not going to do it, then who does?
Absolutely. That's absolutely it, Kyle. That's, everybody should think about that once in a while, because that, to me, that's the whole key to keeping the things moving forward. I mean, I've listened to some amazing speakers talk about all aspects of this. Some very knowledgeable people. But at the end of the day, I think the onus of it is going to end up right squarely in our laps. You know what I mean? If we don't change it or we don't try to make it better now, it's going to be pretty hard in the future to swing it around. But if we can make some steps now and start turning things, maybe as things go down the road, we can get a balance happening again.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's given me pause to reflect as we're talking here, Don, because you kind of think, you kind of think, well, government will look after it, or maybe the society or whatever. But the thing is actually government's nothing, the society's nothing without the people behind it, right? So, and I think that's where I look at a guy like yourself that does what he can all the time. He's you're showing up, you're supporting. There's you donate your time, you donate your obviously your amazing knives, all that sort of stuff. But you're involved. You're actively involved. Your family's involved. They're members of every, all these orgs. And you just keep giving. I see that plaque behind you. You got a Summit Life Member plaque behind you, or is that a Life Member plaque? But I know you just summed it up. Yeah. So you just summed it up. Yeah. So there you go. And we need to do these things, right? We need to do them because they're not going to manifest themselves. So if these things are important to us, and it's not. This isn't a pitch for the society. This is just a pitch for conservation, right? It is a movement, there's many ways to get involved, and maybe it's joining, the BCWF, or maybe it's joining Wild Sheep Foundation Alberta, or maybe it's joining, whatever. But it is a movement, and all of us have to be involved, and we all have to try and find ways to. And I think that's my ask is let's try and find ways to work together, right? How can we bring our orgs and our this conservation movement together, because it needs us. It desperately needs us, and certainly the hunter conservationists of the world need to sort of get their act together. As the society, I think that we have that mantra. We try and find ways to do that. And I think
Yeah,
other orgs do too, but I think we could do better.
absolutely. I've seen a real uptick in the last 10 years of people wanting to get involved. At least it seems to me like about 10 years. It's been growing. I think the last 10 years there's been a definite uptick in people that are passionate and want to get involved and do something. Because everybody, I mean, anybody that spends any time in the outdoors, we're seeing the results of not doing anything. And if we all get together and start doing something again, and at least then we've tried, right? And like you said, I think you're absolutely nail on the head about having to get everybody working together. We're not much of a voice, the Wild Sheep Society, the BC Wildlife Federation, Ducks Unlimited, all of those guys are great organizations, but they all come together. If every member of every organization came together and every hunter belonged to at least one organization, then we'd have it. Then it'd be a lot harder to say no
Yeah.
or ignore what we're saying. You know what I mean? I agree with you 100%. If we can get everybody off their duff and do something. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be big, but do something. Join Wild Sheep BC, join BC Wildlife Federation, join Hunters for BC, join the Elk Hunters Association. There's hundreds of options. But I think at the end, what we have to do then is take those groups and unite their voice to go forward.
Well, and it doesn't okay, let's look at a case study where, we effed it up royally, and we just roll back to 2017 and the grizzly bear. And, I always scratch that bloody itch because it's just so insane that we ever got there. But here we are in this train wreck in modern day BC where, people are, there's this incredible uptake on grizzly bear attacks and conflict, and we have no real active tool to manage them other than hire a CO to go out and dispatch these animals when, in fact, we could use hunter conservationists to manage, right? And it's just, a classic example where 110,000 hunters in British Columbia couldn't get off their arse and do anything about it. We had 5,000 replies, and the majority of those 5,000 replies to an engagement survey were in favor of shutting down the grizzly bear hunt. And you're just like, wow, when do we sort of get together on an issue? That probably would have been a good one, but people didn't seem to care, and now they sort of do, I guess. But there are people that care about it deeply, but there's a bunch of people that are just, I guess, kind of ambivalent. But to me, that's a classic case example, and it's, what's the next one? Is it black bears? Is it sheep? I don't know. Where does it go? I'm there's only 2,500 sheep hunters, sheep tags sold each year. So is that it? I don't know. It'd be interesting to see.
Yeah. I'm not sure either, and I agree with you wholeheartedly that we had an opportunity to do something about the grizzly bear. However, from my understanding, the grizzly bear was a pawn in the game. You know what I mean?
Right.
That was
Yeah.
traded to the Green Party for the sightseeing dam and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, there's no less grizzlies now than there were, and there's actually more grizzlies being killed by COs and First Nations than ever were hunted by hunters. So that part, you know what I mean? It's disturbing, but that's the way it goes. I mean, I know around here, I don't know the numbers for the last year or two, but I know just after they closed the grizzly hunt down here, I was talking to one of the local COs, and he said that they'd had to dispatch just about as many as it had been taken the year before by legal hunters in this area. So, and in the years prior to that, they didn't have nearly as many to deal with, when there was an active grizzly draw here. So,
Yeah.
so
well
it's,
said.
it's again another one of those things. And like you say, what's next? It seems like right now there's non-hunters and anti-hunters seem to focus on the predators because they don't see them as a food item. You know what I mean? Like everybody, oh, well, you don't eat cougars, you don't eat lynx. Well, I do.
Yeah.
If I'm lucky enough to capture one of them, they go in the freezer too. You know what I mean? Black bear, we eat black bear lots. Like the kids, we make jerky. It's I don't know. It's perception. Unfortunately, Walt Disney's hard on us. You know what I mean? Turning all
Yeah.
these fuzzy little animals into, oh my God, they're our friends. They're not a resource.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
At least that's the way I look at it. And it makes it kind of hard, right? You know, it makes it difficult, right? For the non-hunters in the community to understand
Mm-hmm.
when they're getting that kind of input from the other side.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think the one takeaway for our listeners is that, like, we hold the keys to conservation. And if you think that government's going to do it or the society's going to do it on its own, really, it's the people that are involved that are doing it. It's not the org itself. It's the people behind the organization that are involved. They're actively participating, and it doesn't just magically manifest itself. That there's, as a not-for-profit, the society, the work that we do is reliant on our donors, our volunteers, our sponsors, our members, really, at the end of the day. And if all those things, if people aren't doing those things, then the society doesn't even exist. If there's no members, there is no society. And then where are we? So I think the key takeaway there is that, you look at, your family, Don, the Stevenson family, and the legacy that you've left with your decades of donations and support and volunteerism, and now you've created that next generation with your son and daughter and their kids. That stuff is absolutely critical to the future of the conservation movement, in my opinion.
You're absolutely right. I think, Kyle, that's why I've done what I've done over the years and tried to keep my family as involved as I can. And it makes me happy to see them boots on the ground too. You know what I mean? Like getting involved, like with the grandkids being, half curl members, Dallas being a life member, Tyler's a life member, these things all help. And the other thing is that the other thing we have to start doing, I think, is a greater population. Hunters especially are the ones in the focus of it. But this affects everybody, not just people that hunt. We're talking people that want to go out and sightsee and stuff. They should be paying attention, and they just assume that it's all done for them. They don't know that there's hard work being done behind the scenes to keep it up. You know what I mean? And that's the way I look at it. Anyway, is the anti-hunters are antis. You're never going to change their mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're radical. They have their radical ideas as far as they say we have ours, but it's the vast majority of the population falls somewhere in between. And another thing we have to work harder at is not necessarily appealing to them, but trying not to be unappealing to them.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And that area we need work. But I know the society and a lot of the other groups are doing a lot of public engagement and trying to get more non-hunting public to think it's all right. Mm-hmm. We're not asking everybody to go hunting, but we need to have them looking at it as a management tool on the landscape, right?
Well said. Yeah, absolutely. It's just that normalization of hunting. And the thing is if you look back historically, like when you grew up in Alberta, did you do any hunter education through school or anything like that? Was that a thing, or was that kind of before your time?
I didn't have to do hunter ed.
Okay, yeah.
I was an Alberta hunter ed instructor for about 15 years. So
right
in Alberta, when the kids were small, I went and got my hunter ed instructors, and I can't even tell you how many classes we taught over the years. But
right,
but that's important. I think that should be available to all kids.
Yes. Absolutely. Well, I think growing up, I did it through high school. I didn't do it in high school, but I did through high school. And then, it's interesting, Jerry Paley from the North Peace region there from up Fort St. John, Jerry talks about in school, they used to bring their 22s to school. He'd carry it to school, and they'd go shoot in the basement. They had a shooting thing set up in the basement of school, and that was part of their curriculum. They would go downstairs and shoot. And so, you think of how far we've come, and I'm sort of seeing the rebound now, but that's part of the problem. You look at these inner city schools like downtown Vancouver, they don't think about wildlife or wild places. They don't really know about it. Like it's, there's a real divide, a rural urban divide. And, a lot of people just don't even think about wild sheep or wild places because they don't, they maybe go and hike the North Shore or something like that, but they're not really spending too much time in the wilds and seeing a moose or seeing a sheep or seeing a deer, right?
Yeah, no, and that's really unfortunate. I think that's part of our trouble. And there's such a, the population is busy making a living. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
not as many people have time to, do the 2 week out in the bush things like we used to when we were younger, right?
Yeah.
And with a lot of urban raised people, it's never been a thing.
Right.
To them getting outside means going to the park at the end of the block.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And you might drive out to the mountains one day for a picnic or something, but I mean, it's not like you're out there wandering up and down them, laying at the bottom for 5 days with a spotting scope, watching that same slope for a week just to wait until he stands up. You know what I mean? And,
Yeah.
there's all those things, but, we need to bring back more outdoor type education
Mm-hmm.
in our school system. But right now that's another whole can of worms right there. The education system's pulling away from that and pushing technology more and more. And, I believe we need a balance. I think everybody should have a balance in their life. And part
Yes.
of it has to include nature in the outdoors, because I think that's how we're grounded. Or I know that's how I'm grounded. When things are all
100%.
messed up, I want nothing more than go to the mountains where I'm alone and just sit. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like I guess that's my recharge station. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think Alberta is working on a program for the schools. I believe that's my understanding. I'm not sure where they're at, but obviously a very sort of conservative leadership over there, and Todd Lowen's very focused on that, and Premier Smith.
Absolutely.
So, they're sort of in a different spot. But maybe if they, that is there, and there's a slow trickle. But they're running into all kinds of a train wreck there too. With
Oh, absolutely.
they've had a real rough go here the last couple of years, and especially with the anti-community. That photographer, I can't remember his name right now, but he,
the guy with the cougar.
yeah, exactly. And WSFAB sort of wound up in the middle of that too, right? Just for
because of their predator management program, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
But unfortunately, again, it's one of those things that it's not always pretty, but it needs to happen.
Yeah.
And if we can make it happen as sportsmen, it's much more cost effective for the public than making the government hire it done.
Yes.
And more effective, I think, because I mean, let's look at trying to take the deer off that island last year or 2 years ago.
Oh,
down south. I mean, how much money did we waste trying to take out a dozen deer? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know that's a little bit politicky, but at the same time, there's got to be a better way.
Mm-hmm.
The more red tape you add, the more money you spend for nothing.
Yeah.
At least that's how I see it. We do pretty good. The one thing I really like about Wild Sheep BC and Wild Sheep Alberta and the Sheep Foundation, and there's other really good programs too that are happening in different areas, is it seems like this money raised like this is leveraged well, and it gets back to the ground faster than if it has to go through a government type bureaucracy.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. It's absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more there, Don, for sure. Where our members' dollars do go on the ground, and it's leveraged. We find partnerships outside the province in many cases to support, like you said, Midwest Wild Sheep Foundation, Wild Sheep Foundation themselves, and others. Ton of heavy lifting being done to support our conservation efforts here in British Columbia, which is really, really amazing.
Yeah, no, I'm so excited about that. I'm excited for the future because we are making ground. We are making headway.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, the Fraser River is a classic example. We see that what we're doing there and the lamb recruitment and how populations are rebounding. And now we're working really hard on a translocation back to British Columbia to bring sheep back. It's interesting, Don. We took, they did a number of transplants, I think 50 some odd transplants to 7 states, about 600 sheep over the years, and they transplanted them into Oregon, and they kind of had this facility. It wasn't captive, but they kind of had this area designated for sheep rehabilitation, and I think they transplanted 50 sheep or something like that, and now they have over 2,000 sheep there. They've got so many sheep that they're opening up ewe hunts, and they want to translocate them back to British Columbia. So we've been working with the Oregon government trying to make that happen. Wild Sheep Foundation did an appeal. We called it the Coming Home Initiative, and we're trying to get these sheep back to British Columbia because they have so many in Oregon. They're hunting them. So it's a great opportunity to translocate back to BC, and that's something we've been working on. So
absolutely help out some of those spots that were impacted so bad by disease the last few years.
Yeah, 100%. There's areas that are functionally, extirpated really on the Fraser, where there's these remnants herds, 3, 4, 5 sheep. It's just not a viable herd, and they need some support. So now there's still some habitat work, some disease work that needs to be done on the Fraser. So we still got a couple years left, but we want to get those sheep on the Fraser as soon as we can, once it's safe to do so. So
yeah, that'll be amazing. Like I said, what a great full circle story, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely love it.
Helped out with our sheep there to get theirs going. Now they're going to bring them home.
Yeah.
Seems perfect to me.
Yeah, so it's an amazing story for sure. So, and it's sort of a testament to our wild sheep community. You talk, the support that you give Midwest, Wild Sheep Foundation Alberta, the Society, Wild Sheep Foundation in Bozeman. You do so much and more than that too, Don. And the thing is we are a community of conservation, and it's not, we have to, and I've gotten some grief over the years, in my role here with the society, like, oh, well, you guys contributed this or you gave money to that. And I'm like, well, yeah, but if we want to start looking for dollars and cents on money going where, oh my goodness, we're probably one of the biggest benefactors of all jurisdictions in North America for dollars for wild sheep that have come from outside funding sources. We've been very, very fortunate, and I'd love to have a conversation with anyone ever on that. If anyone ever says, "Well, why did you guys send money down for that project?" Like, okay, if we sit down with a ledger, dollars and cents, we'll get our ass handed to us. Like, we have to think big picture.
Absolutely. And that's the one thing that I think that part, I think I've seen huge gains in the overall community in the last, 10 or 15 years as well. I've seen it, we're much more interconnected. There's way more information sharing, how to make this much money, do this much work. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
All that stuff seems to be gaining ground all the time. And that's good. And I mean, the guys at National have done a great job of creating funds. They do an amazing, like, holy cow, it's just amazing what they do there. And then all the subgroups seem to be getting better at it as well. But I think we all learn from take a good example and learn from it and run with it. And then, like you said, the interconnection between the groups is becoming tighter and more fluid. And so, if we need money up here for a certain project, there's money available or money we could leverage through another outfit that will help us do our projects here. And then in return, when it comes time to help someone else out, I mean, I see that that's a valid point from us too. I mean, you can't expect to give and not receive.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or vice versa. You can't receive and not have to put anything out ever.
Yes.
That's kind of what this whole thing is about. As a group and as a society and stuff, that's the whole thing. Like, that's why the guys like me that, you guys got lots of really amazing sponsors that make me look like a peanut as far as what I do. But these guys all believe in the project that we have to work together.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I'm not going to say I'm not agreeing with the part where you say you look like a peanut. You do your lion's share of support, Don. So, but I do agree that everyone is working hard together and getting the big picture, and people believe in what we're doing, and it's inspiring. And I'll tell you, it's the stuff that gets me fired up every single day when I just see so many people care so deeply and get so involved. And you're right at the core of that, my friend. You've done it for years, and you're an inspiration to our community.
Well, like I said, I just like, I'm happy that I'm able to help, and I'm privileged to be associated. So,
Well, we're sure grateful for it. Dawn, I know you got we're on the cusp of the holidays here, and we're winding down for Christmas, and you probably got cows to feed and knives to make. Anyone that's interested in any of your products, what's the best way for them to check you out?
my website is just being redone again. Apparently, we had problems with it over the last few months that I didn't realize. I've got a guy working on it right now. Stevenson Knives at www.stevensonKnives.ca. That's the best way. And amazingly enough, we're even going to have the email work off there this time. So
Okay.
I had no idea. I had, like I said, I got this guy to have a look at it for me. He's a good friend. He's a nephew of another knife maker. And he goes, well, he said, have you been getting many messages off the website? I said, no. He said, well, that's because they're not going anywhere. He said, they're just piling up here.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
But no, we had some bots or whatever attack the website and ended up infecting it. And there was a whole bunch of foreign writing on it and stuff that we couldn't remove. So we had to get an expert to have a run at it. And the more he digs into it, the more damage he's found. But he says hopefully within a week or so, it'll be back up and running.
Okay.
They, check me out, come, get out to a banquet somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Let buy a ticket, come to the banquet, come to the trade show. Come look around. I mean, I can't think of anybody that likes to be outdoors that wouldn't enjoy any of the banquets we do, and being around the people that we're around.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a
Absolutely.
very welcome, open community. For
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree, Don. That's the best place is get out, and you obviously have a really good selection of knives when you come to these shows. So you're gonna have a booth at Sheep Show, aren't you?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we're
So
not sure. I'm scratching my head on getting across the line with any volume of knives this year, but we're working on it. So
right. Yeah, absolutely. So you got Sheep Show in Reno, and then we got our show in Penticton, the Salute to Conservation.
yeah,
We've got our Northern fundraiser in Wild Sheep Foundation, Alberta, and the Edson chapter as well.
yeah, that's the ones I'm signed into right now. So
Awesome. Well, that's great. Well, Don, I can't thank you enough for your time today, and certainly all your effort and your family's dedication to the cause. And you're rolling your eyes at me here. Can't take a compliment. I get it.
yeah,
But we can't thank you enough, Don, for all you do and all your support and being part of our community.
well, we appreciate you guys too. Let me tell you. So
Awesome.
it's important for all of us to work together.
Well said.